Holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen, Iowa State stays ranked in the top 10, continuing the streak, keeping it alive. I couldn't be more excited. We're talking about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we'll be breaking down the men and their ranking in the top 10 for how long? I guess we will see. Then obviously the Iowa State and OSU game. We'll talk about that. And then obviously the women, the previous game that we have not yet covered, and their upcoming game against UCF. Where do they stand? We'll talk about that in the third segment. So let's just jump right on into it. Iowa State ranked number 9 in the latest AP poll, came out yesterday. I got some mixed feelings on this. I'm not going to lie to you guys. If it felt disingenuous at the beginning, it is, but it's not. Okay, so let's take a look at the top 10. 1, Auburn. 2, Duke. Then I'm not going to say any more numbers. Florida, Houston. We just played them. Tennessee, Alabama, St. John's, Rick Pitino, Michigan State, Iowa State, number 9, Texas Tech, number 10. Now, why am I talking about this? Why are we sitting here yapping about Iowa State being number 9? Well, one of the biggest deals around this whole thing is that this is the longest streak in the country in the top 10. Iowa State has been in the top 10 for 24 straight weeks. Big deal, I suppose. Now, here's where I stand with this. I do not think that this is a big deal. I'm sorry. Maybe this is hypocritical of me. I don't know exactly what I've said when Iowa State was ranked 2. I know that was really cool. But I do know that maybe I misspoke. I don't honestly know. I feel like the rankings are completely worthless. Mostly worthless. Unfortunately, when there's a community involved, they do still matter. But nonetheless, Iowa State up at 2 was neat. It was cool. Whatever. Top ranking in program history. And now we're at number 9. And it seems like all we're talking about is Iowa State holds on to the streak, continues the longest streak in the nation. Should I be mad about this? Probably not. I should probably be celebrating this. Okay, I understand that completely. I 100% get it. I'm probably being a little bit too salty right now. And look, I just want to win. Okay, that's really all I hope for here. And so when Iowa State basketball is tweeting about keeping the streak alive, not like, hey, we're number 9, like, hey guys, we kept the streak alive. We kept, like, that's the goal. That's where I sit and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? Are we just trying to stay in the top 10 or are we trying to win games? Okay, now I know the two are practically unrelated in every regard. I understand that TJ isn't going into games thinking, all right, how can we keep this top 10 ranking alive? I know that that's not the case. And I'd like to throw in here before I get the comments. I still think Iowa State is a top 10 team, 100%. 100%. I mean, you could almost make the argument that they should be higher than 9. Maybe that is what I should have gone with here. But I'm not, because it irks me a little bit more that we're seeing all these posts about, well, they kept the top 10. Let's go. Like, no, we want to win. I mean, I assume, isn't that what we're doing here? So I'm a little bit upset that there's just so much focus around we are a top 10 team for this many weeks in a row. Look at us. Look at us. We've stayed in the top 10. Like, yeah, it's great. It is amazing for the program. It really is. Okay. It has so many benefits, more than just being able to say that, right? There's recruiting implications. You're solidifying yourself within the basketball landscape. Obviously garnering attention and respect from bigger programs, analysts. The way the trickle effect of this is monumental. I understand that. I see that. Okay. Let's just let this happen in the background. Okay. I don't know if maybe I'm just ahead of the curve here. And I hate to say that. I don't want to boast, because I hope this isn't the case. I just hope that this doesn't become a thing where it's like, oh, well, we've held on to the, we have this many home wins in a row. And now every time we play at home, we play not to lose. We don't play to win. We just play to keep that streak alive. We're out there playing. Oh, man, if we lose to OSU, we're going to lose our top 10 ranking. Who cares? Obviously, we want to win. I know that's what I just said. Obviously, I don't want to lose to Oklahoma State, but I'd be more upset about the loss to Oklahoma State in, how did the game go? How did we look? Who played? What was kind of the tone of the game? What are the implications for the tournament? Which at this point, it doesn't matter. It's too late in the season, and we're effectively locked in. Seeding, maybe, I suppose. But I wouldn't be upset like, we lost our top 10 ranking. Ugh. How will we recover? No, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm getting too bent out of shape about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting to be an old head. I don't know. Probably. I assume not. I assume not. But yeah, I mean, you look at the top 10, and I do think Iowa State's seeded about correctly, or ranked about correctly. And it is tough. It's like what we talked about yesterday. How do you rank that Houston game? I think there's a lot of positives that can come from that, but you can't draw how powerful is Iowa State from that game, right? You just can't make a true conclusion now because they're missing players. They were able to keep really close, good defensive effort. You're able to hold a now number 4 Houston team and get real. I mean, it was way closer than it should have been. I think we can all agree on that without Keshon or Curtis. I mean, that shows grit. That shows that this team's got it, right? You don't get the win, though. So how powerful is this team? And is this like a long-term? I assume not. One of them's an illness. Muscle strain could be a deal. But I don't think we're going to be looking at this team with this lineup long-term. So how much is that really? It makes it hard, not only for me, but for the AP men's basketball poll to adequately say this is how good Iowa State is. Now, it would obviously be different if Iowa State goes out there without a Curtis and Keshon and gets blown up by Houston, right? It turns into I don't even know. Let's say it's 50 to 100. Okay, let's just throw out some random numbers, some easy math. Double up, they score 100 points. It looks bad. It looks terrible. I would imagine that you'd probably take a bigger hit in the rankings. But you go out there and you play them close, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they could have won if they had Keshon and Curtis out there. Who knows? It took an LJ Cryer legacy game, right? So where is Iowa State? Maybe they'll be fine when they come back. So that it makes it hard for me. I don't even really care about the ranking. I mean, Texas Tech at 10 is almost crazier to me. Like, they're good. But I guess we'll see. They play Houston. So they played Houston yesterday. At this point, I have not seen that game. I'm taping a little too early. But yeah, anyways, I'm trying not to stay too negative about this because it's cool. It's great. Obviously, it's a good thing for the university that Iowa State has stayed in the top 10 for as long as they have. It brings relevance to the program. Like I said, helps with recruiting. It helps gets the fans involved, right? There's a lot of bonuses to this. I just personally get a little bit when we're talking about, well, Iowa State, look at that. We kept it going. We kept that streak alive. Like, who cares? Let's win the games. Let's have the streak of most national championships won, most games won. And the whole streak thing is just, I mentioned, like, it makes me a little nervous. It brings this pressure, this unnecessary pressure. And at a time in the season in which Iowa State feels like there should be no pressure. Like, we lost the home win streak. Okay. Now Milan's back, right? The minutes pressure there isn't really there. We're down in the poll, right? We're no longer number 2. We're not like leading the Big 12 in anything. We're still a good team, but we're not like going for a title here. I don't even think it's mathematically possible hardly at this point. So it's like, okay, everything's down. We can just play free. Now all of a sudden I see, okay, well now we got to keep the streak alive. I just don't want all this factors going on. That's all. I don't know. Maybe I'm not in the right with that take, but I still stand by it. That's just me though. I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. I just let's worry about winning games. This can come and go. This is fine. Whatever. It's fine. It is what it is. Speaking of winning and losing games, we got to play OSU. What's going on there? We'll talk about that coming up right after this. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. And when I win, my money hits my account in less than 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got to talk about Iowa State taking on Oklahoma State, looking to get a win after the loss to Houston. The first thing that everyone is asking about, and I don't have any more news than you, other than what I'm about to say, I suppose. Maybe if you haven't seen this, this came out maybe about an hour ago. Iowa State, questionable. Curtis Jones and Keshon Gilbert. Not sure if they'll play. But I will say this, they traveled to Oklahoma State. So they're there. There's potential. Okay. Now, we don't want to rush anybody back. We want everyone at full strength. And especially, I don't mean this in a bad way, but Oklahoma State, not necessarily a game that we would maybe rush back for. This team, 13th in the Big 12, 13-14. I mean, 5-11 in the conference. Is that a team we're rushing guys back for? Probably not. Realistically. Okay. Now, what has Oklahoma State done this season? Honestly, nothing too crazy. Not a horrible loss to Houston, 72-63. They beat Colorado, but so did we. They beat Utah, so did we. Beat Arizona State, so did we. And in their non-con, nothing crazy there either. Pretty much winning games that they should win. Which is why this Iowa State team, right now, 87.9% chance per ESPN. What's that worth? To defeat the Cowboys, Oklahoma State. I don't know why I'm having zero brain activity on what their name is. It is the Cowboys. Okay. Let's take a look at some of their teammates, the dudes that go out on the floor. 3 guys, kind of their leading scorers, within about 0.6 of a point of each other, and then there's a drop off. Bryce Thompson coming in at 12.4 points per game. Marcellus Avery at 12, and Abu Osman at 11.8 points per game there. And Osman is their leading rebounder. And Arturo Dean is going to be their assist guy. So, I'm going to say this, and it's going to come across a little bit mean, but I don't mean it that way. I think Oklahoma State is more concerned about their wrestling team than their basketball team right now. And I only say that because their wrestling team is unbelievable. It's fun to watch. So good. But this basketball team, not quite on that same level. I mean, only 2 teams below them in the Big 12 standings right now. Arizona State and Colorado being those 2 teams, 10 games back from the lead to Iowa State's 4. It's clear that Iowa State is the better team than Oklahoma State. Now, I will say this is where we get away from the numbers. We get into just my opinion, and we get into, you can clearly disagree or easily disagree with me. Not clearly, easily disagree with me. What happens if Iowa State wins this game? What happens if Iowa State loses this game? Who plays? How does it go? That's what I'm looking at here. And I'm not looking at this the same way that I looked at a Houston. Okay. That game to me was like a huge, how good is Iowa State game? Okay. And unfortunately, there was just a crazy no Curtis, no Keshon type of deal. I said just minutes ago, I don't know how easy it is now to tell how good Iowa State is from that, because it feels like that's so far from a lineup you would normally run, but you kept it close. You did. You kept it to single digits. That's good. I mean, that is good. And that helps. It just shows what this team can do under certain circumstances. Okay. But obviously we don't hope for that. So now it's okay, where are we at with potentially a Keshon, potentially a Curtis Jones in the lineup? Who knows? Against a lesser opponent. I don't think that this game is it's not going to tell much about Iowa State. Let's put it that way. The way I see it at this moment, I do think that this is kind of one that they kind of have to knock off, just run the check mark by it. Let's get a little bit of maybe some momentum going here because obviously you're coming off a loss. And then you get to come home to an Arizona, which is going to be a big game. That one will matter. But this one, not going to say that this is going to shake any waves if they win. It's just like, okay, they beat Oklahoma State. Now, if they lose, the question is how, right? It also depends on who plays. All of that kind of hinges into this whole thing. If there's no Curtis and Keshon again, then what? Right? Is that still alarming if they lose? In my opinion, I would actually say no, which is crazy. I think that if I heard somebody else say that, I'd say, what are you even talking about? But that's actually kind of how I feel. I don't think if they lose this game with no Curtis and no Keshon, my red flags are going to go up. I'm going to say, you know what? They're just fine. This is not a lineup that they're going to be wheeling out there. Nobody looks at the Keshon and Curtis list lineup and says that this is a Final Four team. This is a Sweet 16 team. I mean, you might get lucky and get to a Sweet 16 if you get good seeds, but I don't think anyone's looking at that hoping for a Big 12 tournament win, championship. Nobody's looking at that lineup saying, all right, this is the guys, this is the group of guys that's going to bring this to an Elite Eight. Nobody's thinking that. So I'm okay with inferior play with those guys on the court. Now, obviously, where's the heart at? What do we see from the guys who are out there? As far as like play style, movement, all those kinds of things. That's going to play a role as well. But if they were to lose this game without a Curtis and Keshon, I wouldn't be concerned yet. And maybe that's incorrect. But if maybe we get Curtis back, who is just out with an illness, or if Keshon feels good enough to maybe get like 10 to 15 minutes and you lose that game, now I am a little bit concerned because something's off. This is a team you should beat. You should beat them without Curtis and Keshon even, which is crazy. But you should. You absolutely should. So then there is a little bit of a cause for concern. Okay. Now, let's just say hypothetically, everybody's in, full go, muscle strain's fine. Curtis had some vitamin C, had some orange juice. He's back to full health. We're getting lungs back, but he's good. Boom. They lose that. Now the panic button is going off. And that's obvious. Right? That's clear. If Iowa State loses to an Oklahoma State at full strength, of course the panic button's going to go off. I'm a little bit more concerned, interested to see, however, how this Iowa State team will do if they are without their top two guys, right? Let's just act under that assumption because they're questionable. How does Milan perform in this game? Do we see kind of that 2-half type of Milan that we saw against Houston? Do we see a little bit of ISO ball? What happens here? Bigger than that, even almost. I still think that Milan's the biggest one because he's going to be the guy. But Nate Heisey. If we see another Nate Heisey big game, kidding me? Could this be could everything that's happened, between the Curtis Jones and Keshon being out, and you go all the way back to maybe even Milan being out, everything that's happened this season led to now Nate Heisey being able to find his groove. And then when the team's at full strength, he comes in, right? That's like maybe that, whoa, what if? Well, never know. So if Nate Heisey balls out, that's going to be something I'm looking forward to. I think he can. I think he absolutely can. It's just hard to talk so much about this game because we don't know exactly who's even going out on the floor. So what's the game plan? Right? More than anything, this is going to have to be a defensive effort. We're going to need to get rebounds, right? The same things that you say every single game. Let's capitalize on the steals. Let's, points off of turnovers, maybe a little bit of transition. But it's, to me, like I've said, if this team loses without Curtis and Keshon, I will not be alarmed, which makes it almost like, what are we even really looking for here? Right? If that's how I'm viewing this. I don't know. I don't view this as a throwaway game by any means. There's great things that can happen here. Momentum, okay? Confidence, getting legs back if you're Curtis or Keshon, a little bit of, maybe some lungs. But I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. I don't even know who's in the game. So, a win for this, let's just boil it down to this. It's Get it done. Okay. A win in this game is a win, obviously. Or if this team looks solid, has a good defensive effort, a lot of second chance points, okay, a lot of hammers, a lot of daggers, okay. And we get to see maybe some Nate Heisey confidence and maybe some more Milan Momcilovic kind of not hero ball, but an opportunity for him to kind of grow into his role. And then that can maybe transition over to when we have a full strength team. A loss in this game is if we do have Curtis and Keshon back, obviously a loss. If we go out with the current lineup and it just looks really sloppy, that's going to be bad. That's not good. Obviously getting out rebounded. If Oklahoma State goes out and shoots 89%, then it's like you're going to lose those games. But you have to play solid defense. You have to take away opportunities, and you have to limit second chance points. You can't let them get those. So there's going to be positives, even if this were to become a loss. But my official prediction is Iowa State runs away with this one by 17 points, just because this team's too good. They are simply too good. So that being said, now we got to talk about the women. Multiple games coming up, talking about that coming up right after this. Iowa State basketball in general is at the forefront right now as we get towards March Madness. And that is not just the men. The women are also looking to make a run here. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And so we've obviously spent a lot of time talking about the men. They're ranked number 9 in the AP poll. What does that mean? What is the game against OSU? What's the value there? All of that. The women, we have yet to talk about their loss to Baylor, and we will talk about their upcoming game against UCF tonight. So let's start with Baylor. 67-52 final score against a 19th ranked Baylor. As far as box score, Audie Crooks had 14, only player with double digits. Addie Brown had 7 assists. Nobody else had more than 1. 6 turnovers from Audie, 5 from Emily Ryan. Rebound-wise, Addie Brown was kind of the catalyst there as well. 10 rebounds overall, 8 of them defensive. And then for Baylor, it was a pretty balanced attack. Nobody with more than 15, nobody starting with less than 9. Obviously, their bench brought 6, but it was between a 2, 3, and 1. So, this is one that I didn't necessarily expect Iowa State to win. You won the fourth quarter, but other than that, you lose every quarter. You're not going to win a lot of games that way. Obviously, Baylor tied at the top of the Big 12 right now. This would have been a big win for Iowa State. And unfortunately, the bracketology has not been updated since this game. To my knowledge, it was only just before this game. So they're still in that last 4 in, kind of the top of that. As it stands as I record this, unless I'm just don't know how to use the internet. So I guess that's good, but I'll see how much a loss to Baylor like this. How much does that mean? Iowa State now 19-10, 10-6 in the conference. Not a bad record, not a bad resume per se. Just feels like we can't win the games that we're not really supposed to win right now. You look at your last however many games all the way back to West Virginia is kind of what I'm looking at here. No wins against a ranked opponent. No wins in conference play against a ranked opponent. And so now what is the expectation for this team? Because I think national title is out the window. It feels like maybe Bill Fennelly feels the same way, I would assume. And so you lose this one against Baylor. And it wasn't one that I necessarily expected them to win, but it would have been nice. It certainly would have been huge, actually. It would have been enormous. But they don't get it done. Now you got UCF. Okay, on the road. And then you have Kansas State at home to close out the season. Now, the Kansas State one is interesting because remember, they go to overtime with Kansas State on when was that? Was a while ago. I don't have the date here. January 30th, maybe. And that was one I really thought they could have won. And if they win that game, do they have more momentum? Probably, maybe. Who knows? Very realistic. Unfortunately, that's just not the situation. So, you got a chance to close out the year with that, and then you go into the postseason, see where you're at. As far as this UCF game that's upcoming. Iowa State, remember, has played UCF, won at 90-56 at home. As it currently stands, UCF 10-16, 3-13 in the conference. Almost at the bottom, only Arizona State and Houston below them. Last time they played this matchup, Iowa State got a lead early, held on to it. It's just at the time UCF had no wins in the conference, so they've picked up 3 since. I guess there's that, right? Maybe UCF could be of some danger here, and you're on the road. They just beat Texas Tech by a point. They beat Houston earlier, and they beat Arizona State. So not exactly beaten up on the top of the competition, but a couple wins, maybe some momentum, maybe. And this is one that they have to win, obviously. Almost a 90% chance per ESPN that they win this game. You have to win this game. You cannot let this one go. You have to get something going here going into that Kansas State game. Just necessary. It just is. It's as simple as that. I don't even know what else you want me to say. Now, you had a good win streak going. Certainly did. That Baylor game, it's tough. Sometimes that's going to happen. But you got to turn around. You got to finish this strong. Only 2 games left in the regular season here. Just show what you got kind of deal. And then you kind of just have to play the cards as they lay after you get these 2 wins, or at least the UCF win. This one you have to get. What do I want to see? I want to see Addie Brown, Addie Crooks, Emily Ryan doing their thing. I want to see this team end up with double digits from 3 or 4 players. I think that's very doable. Maybe we start potentially cycling in some younger players here. Maybe, who knows? In the last matchup, it was Addie Crooks with 22, Addie with 13, as well as Ariana Jackson. So maybe we can get something similar to that going here. We don't need a blow-away win. We don't need to win 100-10, but we certainly would like to get a pretty handed win on the road here, bring some momentum back to face Kansas State at home. I don't know what else to tell you besides that, to be completely honest. This is just one they have to win, have to show up. Going into the postseason, you're going to need all the momentum you can get, especially right now if you're Iowa State, and this is the time to do it. This is the time to make it. You got to make your own momentum. So not a great showing against Baylor, but you got a chance right now to turn it around. Simple as that. That's going to do it for me, folks. If you're still listening, shout out to you. Make sure you subscribe so we can prove once and for all it's Cyclone State at Inkamarov on Twitter. We can start maybe bouncing some ideas off each other as we're getting near the end of basketball. End of the, it's kind of the dog days. News is going to be hard to come by. So until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.